we go. Let that rumble briefly in the background, just while I'm making sure all the bits and pieces have gone. We do like a little bit of news, though. Thank you to the bees for that, if nothing else. The numbers are looking okay, which is what we like to see. Just check a few bits and pieces. Numbers are rolling. There we go. We'll do that. We'll do that. Should probably also turn that off as well in the background because it's making a noise. There we go. Because then what we do is we hit the button. Hey, there we go. Oh, dear me, hang on, I've just realised standing here how close that is. There we go. The rig was a little bit too close. I suddenly realised I was standing here just how physically close everything was to my face. That's not great. Catch up, folk. Your magic word is crayon. So if you're watching after the fact and you're doing it on catch up, stick the word crayon in the comments. Stick it with a thought as well. That's always a little bit of fun. That's your one warning. Of course, we've got the warm-up question as well. Pick one player from any other team. Let's say it's in the NIHL. I probably should have been more specific on that front. But yeah, pick one team, put them on on another team to help them win the playoffs. Dylan, I can see, has immediately gone for putting Zach Yokoyama back on the Lions. My worry about that is, does he overbalance the Lions potentially on the top end? I'm interested as to where you'd actually physically put him in the lineup there, Dylan, if I'm 100% honest. What we're going to try and do as well. Niall, hello. Well, that's on you for not catching it, but I'm ticking along fine, mate. We'll get onto bits and pieces in a minute. This is all going to go slightly wonky for a second, just while I'm trying. Actually, I've done this wrong. What do I need to do? Oh dear. Oh no. Oh no. We don't like that. Don't like that at all. Come back. Come back. There we go. It all went sideways for a second. We won't try that. We'll leave that as it is. We'll see if we can load it up in a second though, just because everything is now back and working and not showing bright red things at me. So we should probably get going before it gets any worse. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division, that is our bread and butter, that is our home port, but of course we're here to walk you through absolutely anything and everything from across the NIHL. That means the National, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north, and in the south. Hope everyone is doing all right. Good to see you again. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Plenty of people chucking some names now in the chat for who they'd take to bolster their team, bolster another team for the playoffs. Doesn't have to be your own one. Doesn't have to be your own team. Don't be so selfish, all of you. But I can see obviously people are probably going to pick their own teams. We'll have a look at those in a minute. So there's plenty of stuff to talk about. Of course, a pretty busy weekend as we are into March, the last weekend of the regular season. So before we kick on too much, we'll have a look at the chat momentarily, but let's give you the housekeeping. So if you've been around here before, you know the drill. Hum along. For those of you who are new, let's introduce you to bits and pieces. Banners on the wall at wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Of course, join me on my weird and winding journey through British hockey with our Banners on the Road series. Since the Basingstoke Bison walked off into the mist just out of sight, I've been on a journey across British hockey to see as much in as many different random places as I possibly can do. Last weekend, though, I was at the heavyweight Titanic clash at the hangar between the Slough Jets and the Streatham Redhawks. Cracking game. You got the most in-depth look you will get at that game, I can guarantee you that, because it's 1,600 words about South 1. It's quite a quick read, though, I promise. But there's plenty of that, and you can go back through this entire season. Elite League, Nationals, Division 1, Division 2, and coming soon, North 1. Ooh. So that'll be fun. That's always good fun to do as well. You can also check out our Hockey Story series, long form, in-depth pieces of content that look at all the bits and pieces from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. We do long form, in-depth looks at historical topics. We talk to the movers and shakers of world hockey. Plenty of stuff in there for folk. For you, whether you like audio interviews, whether you like videos, whether you like just having to sit down and read some bits, we've got something for you. The most recent piece, of course, is a video. We did have a sit down and a chat with Jamie Thompson, assistant coach of the Solway Sharks, now also standing GM of the Solway Sharks, but also the head of player bits and pieces for Scottish ice hockey. So plenty of fun stuff to do in there as we had a look at just what's happening north of the border, because I'm closer to France than Scotland. I figured I might as well ask. The other bit, of course, to be aware of is you are here Wednesday night 8 p.m, the only live show that covers every aspect of the NIHL structure. That is the What's Current stream. We go through absolutely everything. You can check out all the bits and pieces. Head down into the description. Links to all our socials and stuff like that is there, so go and check that out. And of course, the great bit about watching the show live, now we know you folk love the catch up, and you've got your magic word to use in the comments already. You can go back to the beginning and check that out. But if you're watching live, of course, you get the benefit of the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything and everything you want to talk about as we go through the wonderful world of British ice hockey, chuck it in there. But please do remember, if you're joining in, the golden rule here at BOTW, DBAD, don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings. We're going to have a fantastic time. I can see folk join in the chat. Niall's back for the first time in a while. Dave from Romford is in. Nikki Watt, 4000 and counting. Nikki has been on a tear recently. Tons and tons of interviews with a few Elite League folk over the last couple of days. So make sure if you're interested, go check out those things. So who have we got then? Folk that you would add to another team to make them better. Dave has cheated and gone for two. He's said he'd add Malik Martelli and Tom Norton to the Raiders. With an actual defence, we could win the playoffs. Fair enough there. What's Dylan said about adding Zach Yokoyama back in? Line 2, just for the fact it matches up with Somerton and Fisher. Zach certainly brought the best out of Fish. It just helps the depth. Seems reasonable to me. I would also take Max Van Mullen just so I can see him. We all love Max. We do love Max here on the What's Current stream. We'll see some of his handiwork in a bit. Rhodes Mitchell, King to Milton Keynes is who I go for. Now, Jamie, I don't always agree with some of your thoughts about hockey. That is a very, very good thought as to who would kind of strengthen up a little bit of that back end and add a different dimension to MK to really make them dangerous. I like that one from you. Having Zach Sullivan at any squad would be a good addition to any D. Certainly at national division level, I think that's a really good shout, Dave. Sam Waller from Stratton would change Invictus defence massively. Yes, it would. The only issue I think potentially with Sam is where he's a little bit older, he's not the fastest anymore, and I think that you would also need to make sure that you've got the requisite amount of speed to kind of counteract that. You need the kind of the guy who's going to wander forward and add that little bit of offensive punch, and then have Sam on the back end. I think that's kind of how that works really, really well. It's why on a lot of in a lot of really tight situations, Streatham use Sam Waller alongside Tomasz Skokan. I think that works really well for them. Either way. I did just try to do it and it nearly broke everything. But if you had, but certainly the Bees have released have said 16th of March against the Romford Raiders is retro night for the Bees, and they have gone back to the old school with a 99-2000 Super League Bees winning roster inspired jersey. If Nicky's still in the chat, he's going to adore that because it's a proper old school one, proper Bracknell Bees logo on it too, into the bargain. So that's also the night where the Bees have announced that they will be inducting Brian Miller, who has been around the club for a really, really long time. He was the equipment manager during that season, and he'll be heading into what the Bees are dubbing the Hive of Fame, which is pretty awesome for that one as well. So do make sure you go and check that out. Before what we'll do as well, we'll just have a quick look, just having a look. Proper jersey. It is, yeah, unfortunately, mate, it came out right bang on 8 o'clock, so trying to add it to this has sent everything for a loop, so we won't do that. Just having a look, though, as to what's happening in the Elite League at the moment. Unsurprisingly, Cardiff are winning away in Fife. That one is 2-0 at the moment. Cardiff have had a goal scratched off. Cardiff did have a goal scratched off. So apologies. Now it's 3-0. Brett Perlini, Jared Gawley, and Bradley Schoenbert have scored for the Devils in that one. 1-1 at the at the Motorpoint Arena between Nottingham and Glasgow. Mitchell Hurd's goal cancelled out by Tim Doherty for the over in that one. And currently Dundee leading by a 0-0. Brendan Harms with a goal for the Stars as they lead in Manchester against the Storm. So yeah, good weekend. I think obviously saw Nicky because of quite a few of us were there in Slough on Saturday night for the Titanic clash between the Jets and the Red Hawks. Really good game. Not the best game I've seen between these two. Certainly that it was always going to be hard to match the intensity of that cup final last year. Like I said, I've gone into quite a lot of detail over on the piece on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That's there. That went up this morning that you can go and check out. The one thing I should say, a couple of things that we did learn. One, Streatham folk like making cookies. That was really nice. Thank you very much for those. The other thing as well was first I finally got to actually meet little Brody properly, and we're all in trouble because that kid's backhand is already pretty handily well developed, and he's not even 3 yet, I don't think, is he, Nicky? So yeah, we're all in trouble. I mean, like, if this kid, I mean, with a what for a dad and a what for an uncle, you knew he was going to probably end up heading towards ice hockey at some stage. But yeah, the kid's already hockey crazy and he's only little anyway. So we're all in for a hell of a ride, I think. And Nicky's wallet's going to be incredibly light as a result. But that is what it is. Great to see Nicky. Good to meet Brody finally as well, and just really, really nice to catch up with people from both sides, Slough and Streatham. Really, really cool to catch up with a few people. Great to see a kid loves the backhand. He does, which given how his uncle scored, works, I think, on that front. But yeah, good to see as well Chris Beale, for folk who aren't familiar. Chris does a lot of the social media bits for Streatham. He also helps kind of edit together their highlight packages and stuff like that, which given the cameras and stuff available to him, quite hard to do. Can he teach me backhands? Yeah. He'll be giving lessons. He'll be giving lessons around nursery before too long. It should be said. But yeah, it was a really, really good evening. Hope you guys have had some good hockey weekends wherever you've been as well. Because of course, a big sort of weekend's worth of results in the national division, which we will click the button, swish, and we will head over to the results from the last week. So, of course, 3 days worth of games, which of course has had a big, big impact on what's going on. So we go back to last Friday night, and the last game of February 2025, and Leeds and Romford decided to give us not to go back to February. These guys went back to the 80s with this scoreline as Leeds and Romford throw up an absolute humdinger of a game, 9-6 the final score, but ultimately a Knights win in regulation again. They keep on making sure that MK are within touching distance at the beginning of what was going to be a tough 3-game weekend for the Romford Raiders. All the usual suspects on the board here. Matt Barron with a hat trick for the Knights, as well as goals for Matt Howlett. Matt Hayward. Oh, sorry, 4 goals. No, 4 goals for Barron. Apologies. I'll learn how to count. So 4 for Barron, and then goals from Matt Howlett, Matt Hayward, Noah McMullen, Innes Gallagher, and Jordan Buesa. The goals for the Raiders coming from George Norcliffe, Elliot Dewey, Reed Morrison, Andrew Schufelt, Brandon Aliff, and Jake Sylvester. So the Raiders, I mean, great to get offense from across the lines there, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't manage to get the wins and you ship 9 goals. A tough night for Owen Ryder, given the full 60 minutes in this one. Heading into Saturday then, and well, whatever slim title hopes were left for the Swindon Wildcats were fettered away because they got slavered good and proper on Saturday evening. Peterborough coming out with a 5-2 win in this one. The Phantoms ahead early through Luke Ferrara before an equalising goal finally coming in the second period through Reed Sayers before the Phantoms put themselves back on top. Luke Ferrara and Nathan Salem scoring either side of the break, and then a 4th goal coming from Brad Bowering. Reed Sayers, his second of the night, reduces the arrears to 4-2, but then Cam Huff shortly afterwards putting the game out of the reach of Aaron Nell's team with a final score of 5-2 as Peterborough doing what Peterborough do and waking up good and proper towards the end of the season. And then the Raiders, having lost in Leeds on the Friday night, headed north to southwest Scotland and to take in a double header with the Sharks. And it was first blood to Solway, a big important win for the Sharks as they tried to chase down and take back 8th spot from the Telford Tigers. Martin Grubb's team with a 6-3 win in this one. 2 goals in the first period from John Dunbar, followed up by Nolan Gardner finally getting himself back on the score sheet after a really dry spell. Lewis Young, Torrin Anderson and Kyle Carruth on the board for the Sharks. Jake Sylvester, Tom Palmer and a second of the night from Sylvester in the second period. The 3 goals on the night for the Raiders. And then it was 2 teams towards the bottom of the table, knowing that the door was close to shutting on both of them when it came to the postseason. But it was the Bees who cracked the Pitbulls and got themselves that away win. The Pitbulls were 1 goal up through Tanner Butler, and you can see there the big hitters doing the work early for the Pitbulls. Butler from Harewood from Walensky on the power play. But after that, it became the Adam Rossbottom show, a hat trick for the RAF man. For the Bees, as well as goals from Marcel Balash and Dominic Goodbye, because who else would it be in that sense, keeping the slim playoff hopes of the Bees alive and getting the Bees off the foot of the table. With Leeds winning on Friday night, it meant that the MK Lightning needed to do the business in the Thunderdome against the Hull Seahawks. And you know that the Seahawks will have wanted nothing more than to try and trip people up on their way through. But it wasn't to be. The Lightning keeping the pressure and keeping that top spot. Sean Norris with a hat-trick on the night. 2 goals from Tom Rutkiss and a late goal from Ben Solder doing the damage for Tim Wallace's side. Johnny Corneal and Bobby Chamberlain spoiling the shutout for Jordan Headley later on in the piece. And then finally on Saturday, more goals. Bonkers 9-6 on Friday and an 8-5 on Saturday. But importantly for Telford, given that Solway's result, the Tigers keep winning. Heading into the week, getting after the weekend now, the form has been the big thing here for the Tigers. We'll talk about it in a bit when we get to the table. But those form bits and pieces have been the really, really big thing for the Tigers and have got them into the position that they're in. When the Sheffield Steel Dogs, well, they kind of continue to confuse everybody. Walker Summer, Nathan Ripley, Jonathan Phillips, Tom Barry and Mary Helfors on the board for the Dogs. But the Tigers winning out in the end with, like I say, just another sort of crazy scoreline as the season rocks on. Let me just do my maths here. A couple of goals for Evan Skleski, a couple for David Thompson as well. Finn Howells on the score sheet, James Smith on the score sheet. How important is he going to be during the latter part of this season? Yes, hat-trick there, for Finn Howells, as the Tigers got their 2 points that they needed out of Saturday to hold the Sharks at arm's length. Into Sunday then, and a bad result for Solway as Romford finally pick up some points on the weekend. 2 out of 6 for the weekend as they still have not secured their spot in the post-season. A 6-4 win for the Raiders. Torrin Anderson, Kel Beattie with 2 and another goal for Nolan Gardner for the Sharks. But the Raiders getting the maximum on Sunday thanks to Jake Sylvester, Adam Leishram, Sylvester with 2 on the night, Reed Morrison, TJ Anderson and Brandon Aliff finishing off the job, and meaning that the Raiders' long journey back home to Essex was not completely fruitless. Then Leeds ratcheted up their 20th goal of the weekend as again they just go absolutely goal crazy, and the Pitbulls get absolutely shellacked again. 2 goals for Mitch Walensky and 1 for Mason Lipsey, 3 on the board for the Pitbulls. But the Knights go absolutely berserk and put an 11th spot on the Pitbulls. The Pitbulls now on the bottom of the table again for the first time in a while. That sort of mid-season spurt that the Pitbulls had seemed to do them the business, but now the Bees are properly above them. Finn Braden on the board, Innes Gallagher, Matt Bissonette, Kieran Brown, Matt Howlett. Bissonette getting a hat-trick in this one. Ethan Hare back on the scoreboard. Christianis Fugalis on the board as well as Matt Hayward inside the last minute as the Knights dominate and keep themselves within touching distance of MK. And speaking of MK, a 4-point maximum weekend for them as well as the Knights. After Peterborough's good win down in Swindon, they can't do the business at home against the Lightning as the local derby very much goes the way of the visitors on this one. Cam Huff's lone goal breaking the shutout near the end. But Jordan Cowney, Tim Wallace, Ross Venus, 2 from Dylan Lawrence and 1 from the player coach himself near the end, short-handed, was enough to give the Lightning the maximum for the weekend. And then another big result for Telford, with Solway losing at home against Romford. An overtime win in Hull is absolutely massive for Tom Watkins' side. Devon Skaleski, who had a really, really poor start to the season, I personally thought, got injured and then came back, and seems to, having come back from injury, has been in much, much better form, and it seems to have worked out really well for him. He is the hero of the piece at the world's most versatile arena for the Tigers. Eric Henderson with 2, Thompson with 1, and Howes with 1, along with Skaleski in regulation for Skaleski's winner. Goals for the Seahawks coming from Jamie Chilcott, 2 from Johnny Cornell, 1 from Bobby Chamberlain, and 1 from Emil Speck. And lastly on Sunday, well, it was the Wildcats. They needed a response after a poor loss at home on Saturday night, and Rennie Marr shuts the door on the Bees in more ways than one. Glenn Billings, Sam Godfrey, Ballant Pacozzi, and another goal for Jake Bricknell puts the Wildcats firmly into 3rd place, given Hull's 1-point weekend after 3 back-to-back 4-pointers. It means when we look at the National Division table, we officially have the first 2 locked out. The Bristol Pitbulls and the Berkshire Bees can no longer mathematically make the playoffs. And with the top 6 already locked in, there are 2 spaces left for 3 teams. The Romford Raiders, the Telford Tigers and the Solway Sharks, 2 of those 3 will make their way into the National Division playoffs. If we look at the top, we're very much down now to a 2-horse race. The Leeds Knights trail the Milton Keynes Lightning by 2 points with a game in hand. 75 for the Lightning from 48, 73 for the Knights from 47, knowing that these 2 sides will meet on Saturday the 15th of March at the Thunderdome, and that game, by the looks of it, is potentially going to decide the National Division title. The gap then is 7 points from the Knights down to the Wildcats, who are pretty secure in 3rd place, 6 points clear of Hull in 4th. Peterborough in 5th and Sheffield in 6th are all automatic, and they are in. Those 6 teams are guaranteed post-season hockey in this National Division season. But the Bees will at least take some mild comfort in the fact that they are off the table for the first time in quite a while. That win over the Pitbulls helping their tiebreaker between themselves and Barry Mackenzie's side, and the Pitbulls now back to the bottom of the table and have a far worse goal difference than the Bees. Whilst the Pitbulls have scored more goals, they've also conceded nearly 60 more than Dominic Gabai's side. And as we edge ever closer, with just a few weekends left of the regular season, the 22nd and 23rd is the last weekend of the National Division's regular season. We are very, very much on the brink of something big. So we have a look ahead then to this weekend, and well, having met on Sunday at the Hangar, Friday Night Lights at the Link Centre in Swindon, as the Wildcats and the Bees will go back to battle this coming Friday over in Wiltshire. The Bees looking to avenge that 4-0 loss that ended their hopes of the post-season. And then on Saturday, big games across for one and all. The Bristol Pitbulls now can only play spoiler, but with the Romford Raiders having not confirmed their place in the postseason, could Barry Mackenzie's side cause an issue for Adam Leishram? The Leeds Knights and the Hull Seahawks will go to battle, knowing that those 2 teams will meet on the last day of the season in Hull. MK versus Peterborough. You know the Phantoms are not going to be happy about having lost 6-1 in their own building. Could they potentially be kingmakers for the Knights? Sheffield versus Telford, as Telford look to keep their good run of form going, and Solway will host Swindon up in Dumfries. And then on Sunday, well, the 2 teams that we know for sure are out will meet in Slough. The Bees host the Pitbulls. It's Hull versus Solway, Hull versus Solway. Peterborough versus Sheffield. Romford take on the MK Lightning, and Telford take on Leeds. I will be in Romford this Sunday for the first time. I'm massively looking forward, and a big thanks to the Raiders organisation for sorting me out for this Sunday's game. That is a 5:15 face-off over at Sapphire Ice and Leisure. Having written for the Raiders programme for the better part of 2 years, finally actually managing to make it across as all the stars have aligned. Really, really looking forward to seeing what Hockey Night in Romford has to offer us. What we will do, though, very quickly, is we just go back, he says. We'll just go back a couple of slides. There we go. Let's go back to the table just for a moment, because what we got. So the big thing here, folks, is that race for the final 2 spots is just a form thing. So I was looking at the bits and pieces after the weekend last night. Last 10 games, Romford 5-4-1, Telford 7-2-1, Solway 2-7-1 in their last 10. And that, as you click that button, is the big one here. For the very simple fact that Solway are just not picking up points when they absolutely need to. Telford, who looked like they were dead and buried, have turned up and have gone on an absolute tear. 15 points out of the last 20 on offer. And yeah, they've had to squeak a few ones out here and there, but it's probably, unfortunately, unless something really drops out the bottom of Telford, it looks like the Sharks are going to be on the outside looking in 9th again. Yes, as Jamie's pointed out there in the chat, 6 goals in 11 minutes from the Knights in the second period of that 9-6 walloping of Romford on Friday night, which is pretty bad. How does the playoff format work against us now? So it's 2 groups of 4. The top 8 become 2 groups of 4. They will play each other home and away once. So you end up playing 6 games. The top 2 from each group go off to Coventry. First team that finishes first in Group A plays second in Group B. First in Group B will play second in Group A, and then we will have the final on Easter Sunday at the Sky Dome in Coventry. Who's coming to the Steel City Showdown in Sheffield, says Nikki. Not me. I know Nikki has got some tickets that you can do a raffle. Mine, because I've got tickets to give away as well. My raffle is starting. We are going to do it before I go away to Bristol and Deeside. So like I said, do you want finals hockey for £1? That's what's going to be coming to you next week. I told you to keep that pound coin somewhere safe. That's all you're going to need, because we're going to try and raise some money for charity, I think is the best thing there. Dylan not going. I was hoping to, but wasn't needed. Well, you might be able to win some tickets, because Nikki's got some going. I've got some going. There's a few. The Billingham Stars podcast are giving some away as well. Zero Pucks are giving some away too. So there's plenty of chances if you want a ticket to what is going to be the absolute crescendo climax of the Division 1 season, with all of their playoff finals all in one weekend for all 4 divisions there before the big Division 1 national playoff game in Coventry. That's going to be pretty big stuff, all things considered. Yeah, I mean, I'll throw it into the chat. I mean, if we'll go back to it just to look at it again. MK and Leeds, what do we think? Who's got it? Who do we think is going to take the National Division title? And who's going to get those last 2 playoff spots? Because it's looking more and more like it's going to be Romford and Telford. But for me, now that's the fact that race is starting to get really close, and I still think, and I know it's not going to go down well with some people, I still have Leeds winning it on the final day, because as somebody who likes writing stories, I like the drama. I think that game on the 15th is going to be huge, and I think if MK beat Leeds, then I think, all things considered, they will deservedly be champions of the division if they can do it. And all I can think about from an MK perspective is the second leg of the cup semi-final against Romford, and what happens there, and how does that hang over their heads when it comes to that one. It was Jamie put in the chat, got to play a fast, quick game on Saturday. Under no circumstances can we let Peterborough slow the game down and risk being slavered. Absolutely not. It is as somebody who watches MK, Jamie, you will know their strengths, and I've said it before. MK's biggest strength in any game, shock and awe. It's shock and awe, and I think it's going to be the MK do best when they blow teams out of the water quickly and then hold them at bay, because MK, I don't think, and I think sometimes some of these really good top end teams in British hockey, irrespective of the league, they kind of struggle to chase the game a little bit, and it happens to teams. Like, you can go behind, and on some nights you're fine, and on other nights you're not. But Leeds sometimes struggle when they have to chase a game, but not as much. But certainly, I feel that Leeds are better at it than MK. Swindon are not great at it. Hull are not great at it. And I think there's something to be said for, on Peter, from MK's point, of just keep making that statement, because ultimately They could put themselves, ultimately somebody could slip up somewhere. Like I said, I'm going to Romford on Sunday. What happens if the Raiders beat the Lightning? Like, I'm pretty, I'm not going to put my house on it happening because that'd be crazy. But I said, could MK lose to Romford again? Absolutely. There's nothing more that Romford would love to do than throw a spanner in the works. What's Dave said? If Raiders had finished 7th, then I hope Leeds win the league. Is that because you'll have a slightly easier playoff draw? I don't. There's no good group. There's no good group in that one. All things considered. What we'll do very quickly, if I click on some buttons, what I want to double check. All I want to see very quickly, NHL National Division playoffs. If I click that, so Group A will be the team that finishes 1st, 4th, 5th, and 8th, with the teams that finish 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 7th in Group B. So, with that knowledge, good evening to Graham from Hawks Talk, of course. So with that bit of knowledge, if the playoffs started today with MK top, that means that Group A would be Milton Keynes, Hull, Peterborough, and Telford, with Group B being Leeds, Swindon, Sheffield, and Romford. That could be very interesting. And then, of course, if you swap that around, if Leeds end up winning the title from MK, you then have Leeds in with Hull, Peterborough, and Telford, and MK in with Swindon, Sheffield, and Romford, which is there's some pretty big permutations there, one way or the other, whichever way you look at it. And, of course, that could all be thrown a spanner in the works if Solway managed to catch Telford. Of course, Solway... The issue for Solway now is that it is starting to look more and more out of their hands. 5 points back at Telford with the game in hand. So the closest they can get is 3 points. It's out of Solway's hands at this point. All Solway can do is just keep trying to pick up points and hope the teams above them slip up. But it's looking progressively like it's going to be harder and harder to do that now. MK tennises for the next few weekends. 2,420 sold out for Saturday. 2250 sold for the Saturday after versus Leeds, and 2,000 sold for the 21st versus Romford. Sold out crowd will be an advantage for MK come next Saturday. I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure it's as big an advantage as you think it is, as MK fans will think it is, because ultimately some teams are better when the crowd is against them, and Leeds are such a good team that I don't necessarily think I don't think it's as big a thing as sometimes as I think it is, because Leeds are not a team that's that hugely affected by such things. If this was a team that runs much more on emotion, like a Romford, for example, or a team that that wants much more control of its circumstances, like a Swindon, I think that's kind of a bigger issue there. For Leeds, I don't think it is. You can't. It's much more of a back-to-back. It's much more of a mentality thing from a Leeds thing as to kind of how they play. You don't win that many trophies by being that good and by being overly effective by the crowd. What's Dave said there? Jamie, your team consistently has as many tickets sold as Coventry and many other Elite League teams. Tell me why you're not in the Elite League. The short I will answer that question, because Jamie, by all means, answer in the chat as well. Dave, the reason MK are not in the Elite League is probably for a couple of reasons. Some of them are practical. One, the cost of that many imports and trying to get housing for them around Milton Keynes is insane, because properties cost a lot in that part of the world. I don't know why, but they do. Because, capitalism, I assume. The other issue as well, when you think about it, Dave, why, after MK as a club had such a disastrous end to their time in the Elite League, when they've come back down, joined the National Division, they are profitable. They're not just profitable, they are, you can find the accounts on Companies House. They're not short of a few bob. They do relatively well, and they got a lot of people coming in. Why blow that up for the sake of it? So, it's very, very easy to say, you should be in the Elite League. Well, hockey doesn't work like football. In a sport that operates in a very, very different space, that doesn't have promotion and relegation, that is generally, for the most part, lived hand to mouth for a really long period of time. Why, if you're MK, do you blow that up and join the Elite League right now? And that's not to slight the Elite League or anything like that. But if you're Milton Keynes, what's the incentive to change right now? It's different in a way than what happened with Solway, right? Solway were dominating North One, almost to its detriment. Won everything, and missed out on one trophy, and got themselves into a position where Solway kind of had an organisational choice: stay and stagnate, or take the plunge. Right? Milton Keynes are not quite in that same position. Sure, they're selling a lot of tickets, but they're not dominating the division. There's not a massive financial gain to step to the Elite League. They're not dominating the National Division to a point where it's detrimental to the product of the National League. If anything, the National League are going to want to keep MK right now. It's a very, very hard sell, irrespective of any of the practicality standpoints of the cost of 15 to 20 ITC cards, 15 to X number of cars, X number of bits of accommodation. It can be done on the cheap, but on the cheap is definitely not good, because we see what Belfast offer as an organisation, and people are not going to be enticed to join a club stepping up if they feel like things are going to be done on the cheap. This also goes back to the fact the owners that MK had back in their Elite League days were terrible, genuinely bad, like really bad owners. And I've been in Basingstoke. I've seen bad owners in the past, and like if you're MK, there is zero incentive. I'm not even sure MK fans wanted to join the Elite League when they actually did anyway. They were quite happy with what they had. And sometimes you have to cross the road and try things out to realise actually what works isn't that. Just thinking about it as well, because obviously the thing that one of the other things that Dave mentioned there was why was about the fact it was about sort of like tickets sold and things like that. What I want to do, high average attendance. Because Premier League, there we go. Because what I want to check here is just kind of where we are. Because if we think about the Championship, right, and admittedly, I'm a bad example of this, because who's my team, right? Bournemouth in football, and we have the smallest stadium in the Premier League. So if we have a look at that, so Bournemouth Stadium holds 12,000. Let's be generous and say 12,000 fans for Bournemouth. If you take that, if you put Bournemouth's average attendance into the Championship, Bournemouth would be 23rd in average attendance in the Championship. 23rd. Behind the only two teams Bournemouth would be, given that Bournemouth fill their stadium every week, the only two teams they'd be ahead of in terms of average attendance if they were a Championship club is Luton Town and Oxford. So the whatever crowd you get in is not the thing. If MK were an Elite League club as well, let's put this into perspective. MK's average attendance would have them 6th in the Elite League if they were an Elite League side. So it's a bit of a hard sell sometimes to kind of just say, oh, they've got a massive attendance, they need to go up kind of thing, because that's not necessarily how it is. Could they? Maybe. Should they? Different conversation. If you could put an Elite League team in one city without an Elite League team, where would it be? You can move an NHL or SNL team to a brand new city. If I was to put a new team into the Elite League, I know if Nicky's lurking around, I think Nicky would probably say Aberdeen is probably a good shout for this, because Aberdeen is a city with a bit of money to it, and might be able to support a thing like that. I think Aberdeen would be interesting. I would. It's really. I mean, it'd be lovely to have something in London. I think on that front, and I think potentially you wonder about, because I wouldn't want to move clubs. I don't think that's fair necessarily to suggest such things. I'd love a team back in Southampton. Because here's one thing for you as well. Actually, if you're on Facebook, there is a Southampton Vikings like memories group, and Nicky Drew, who played for the Vikings for many years, I think he played for Bournemouth as well. He certainly played for Basingstoke back in the day. And Nicky has essentially just found a load of these old Southampton Vikings programs in his loft, and once a week he takes one out, photographs it, and puts it on the group. And boy, some of the old names, like Davy Graham and Pete Murray, and some of these old sort of classic names of the 80s British hockey are just fascinating to see. Also, the adverts are crazy to read as well, because I forgot the Southampton Vikings were sponsored by Burger King. Newcastle, 100% in the IHL. That's a very, very good shout. The Newcastle Vipers back in the day were a thing. They were a sight to behold for sure. Also, from a Vipers perspective, Paul Ferrone, the toughest man I've ever watched play hockey. Didn't really watch him at Belfast, but saw him. The first time I ever saw Paul Ferrone was as a Newcastle Viper, and genuinely, like I say, I think probably the toughest player I've ever seen play. Ayr, I'm fascinated as to what would happen with Ayr now. Just because I'm interested as to whether it would support a club. I assume it probably would still be fine. Dublin, I think, is a bit of a misnomer, because I think I think from a Dublin perspective, that's the thing that needs to be built up, because all of the hockey on the island of Ireland is in and around Belfast, right? And I think there's some work that needs to be done with the IIHA, the Irish Ice Hockey Association, to start building things up a bit more before we say let's put an elite league team in Dublin, because ultimately, with nothing behind it, tougher than coffee. Yeah, to Paul Ferrone, for some of you younger folk, hit YouTube, find Paul Ferrone highlights. Genuinely, like people like some of the old school elite league enforcers, Brad Voth, Brad Crookshank, Jason Robinson, folk like Jeremy Cornish. And the thing is, of course, that having met Jeremy Cornish ruins the illusion, because he's like the nicest man in the world. Andre Payet, God rest him, terrific enforcers, but Paul Ferrone is genuinely the toughest man I've ever seen. If the clan owner didn't take over there, Dublin was on the table. So is my understanding of it as well. I'm just not sure it was I'm not sure just dropping a team into it was with the system we have now. In Belfast, with something like the Super League, where it was just so import laden, I think you can get away with it. But I'm not sure. For me, I think there's a bit more groundwork to be done. I'm not sure you can just drop a team into Dublin. A lot of Belfast fans also travel up from Dublin, so building a fan base would be hard. I mean, new things excite people, and some people will not be prepared to travel up travel up to Belfast, and that will have put them off of doing that. And yeah, admittedly, it's like an hour away, but there's like I said, I think if somebody said we're putting a team into Dublin right now, I'd be fascinated if they made the starting line in September, because for me that is an organisational thing that needs building up before you do it. That might just be me being a little bit overly cautious about such things, but what do I know? I don't run hockey teams. I just watch hockey and talk about it for the most part. But yeah, maybe that's something. Maybe that's something to do during the summer, like the Enforcer Chronicles. Nicky, you can sit there, go through some YouTube videos and just watch some of the old talk. We can talk. Get some of your older Enforcer mates on. You can just talk about how ridiculously tough some of these guys were. Well, I'm trying to think, because I know Bandy fought Cornish at one stage, but I'm trying to think of some of the guys who fought Paul Ferrone, or at least who fought Paul Ferrone that'll be easy to get in contact with. Recruitment would be easy. Yeah, I mean, the issue in Dublin, of course, is that it's separate laws and it's different taxes and bits and pieces like that. So hopefully, the Irish government do live giving out tax breaks, so it'd be interesting there. Newcastle, London, Edinburgh would be where I'd put teams in an ideal world where money isn't a worry. I mean, I watched Edinburgh in the Elite League. I love Murrayfield; it's a great place. I never got to partake in the White Link weekend away from the stories I'd heard. I would have loved that. So I love to see the Isle of Wight back. There's a good shout. Telling the imports they needed their passports was always a good laugh. I love to see an elite team near the southeast, Norwich, perhaps. It would be interesting to put one into East Anglia for sure. I mean, there's obviously a rink in Cambridge, but it's too small for Elite League hockey. But but yeah, I mean, certainly for me, the main areas would be the south coast, another team in the southwest, and maybe something back like Newcastle. Bullas talk Cornish and it's on YouTube. I mean, Corny, this was the thing is that it's not always about winning, but it's putting the effort in, and I think a lot, Sam Bullas actually, somebody said the other day who's the most underrated, I can't remember if it was something Nicky put out or something somebody else put out, but talked about the most underrated player for their club. Sam Bullas, I know, gets a lot of credit from Swindon fans, even I think he's underrated, even by Wildcats fans at times, for just the sheer amount he's done. Utterly crazy, and also should be said, bully, lovely bloke, really really nice into the bargain. The tough guys always are, and the tough guys are always the ones as well. I think, and Jeremy Cornish was a prime example of this when he coached. Was a really really prime example of there's no bad way to kind of get involved and spread the word about the game. If ever I needed something like a Jeremy Cornish when he was coaching, drop me a line. I'll talk to you. I'll do whatever's needed, and it's massive to be said. Oh, water. I did see that it was. I did see it was 2-1 in the Panthers game. We'll just quickly pull up the scores there. Cardiff 5-0 up on Fife, which is a surprise to absolutely nobody. Nottingham still 2-1 though, as Dylan has said. A goal just waved. A goal waved off for the Panthers in that one. Dundee leading by 2-1 in Manchester. It was 2-0. Ryan Hughes has just pulled one back for the Storm. Manchester, of course, battling to try and get their way into the playoffs. 2 games in hand on Dundee, 6 points back. So this game tonight is going to be a big one for Manchester if they can turn that one around and win in regulation. Maybe Liverpool, says Niall. I'm not massively convinced I'm not sure on Liverpool. I feel like the Northwest with I mean, there's obviously potential for a rivalry with rivalry. I've suddenly turned into Jonathan Ross. Rivalry with Manchester, of course, always on the table. I think there's other areas that have lost the shine of top level hockey that had it before that I think was able to. And I think that's something to be looked at there. Either way, we have done the national division. I'm going to see actually if I press this, because we do need to look at Division 1. So I want to see if I click some buttons here. What I want to do, if I go to, so I'm not logged in here, but if we click some buttons, we might be able to go away. I hate. This is the joy of doing things live. Berkshire Bees. So if we go to their news page, because what we might be able to do is see if we can get some bits up. Is this going to load? He wonders to himself. I also don't know why it's loaded. Why that's loaded twice. Let's get rid of that. What I want to try and do very quickly is see if we can get it to load up this jersey. You were the timekeeper, Dylan. You were doing everything and everything for all men, apparently, on that day. I don't know why this isn't working. I venture it's because I'm streaming and it's just all so massively heavy. And the B side is just not wanting to play ball. We won't worry about that. We'll try and have a look at that again in a little bit. If Durham had a team again, do you think them playing North 1 would work, or would it put a strain on them Whitley and Billingham in terms of recruitment? Ooh, I think it would probably put a little bit of a strain, but I also think as well that there'd be a few guys on both sides who might take a chance, and a few guys who might come down from Scotland for it if they wanted to kind of try North One as opposed to the SNL. Either way, though, what we would do, let's have a look. No goal, Clan power play. Not sure I agree. Brian was able to move his legs. Not sure how it's interference if he can move about. Pass on that one because we haven't got the footage here. Either way, let's go have a look at the remainder of the National Ice Hockey League structure, starting in North 1 as we usually do. Dylan, of course, in the chat will be massively happy about this one because the Nottingham Lions win on the big pad at last as they give Whitley a good old-fashioned walloping. The Lions of old have certainly seemed to turn a corner this year, different, with some of those younger kids coming through under the tutelage of Ash Padalek, and the Lions with a 4-0 up halfway through this game thanks to Alex Rushby, Tyler Somerton, Bailey Challens and Padalek himself, now on 32 goals for the year. Alex Rushby, by the end of this game, was after getting a hat-trick, was on 25 and he's 16. Bloody kids. But either way, a 9-2 victory for the Lions as they have fully secured themselves into the postseason in North 1. As we can see there in the numbers, a hat-trick for Alex Rushby, 2 for Alex Padalek, and goals from Jack Croston, Bailey Challens, Luke Birchnell and Tyler Somerton. The Warriors, as we can see, travelling with a really, really short bench, and injuries have been an issue for them going into this game, and were after the weekend as well. Their 2 goals coming from Dean Holland. Josh Crane conceding 9 on 42 as James Guest gets a 23 save victory for him. After losing the North 1 Cup, the Blackburn Hawks rebounded nicely at home against the Solihull Barons with a 9-4 victory. A bit back and forth to start things before the Hawks eventually managed to pull themselves away. The Barons just not able to fully accompany things. But by the end of the night, Nicholas Otterson was on 34 plus 67. He is the first player in North 1 to hit the 100-point barrier for this season. So congratulations to him on that. Crazy to think Ian Brown with his 60 goals still hasn't made it there. Goals for the Barons in this one coming from Otterson, from Matt Morris, Sean O'Neill and Alex White. The Blackburn Hawks goals coming from Jacob Lutwich, Liam Charnock, James Riddick, James Royds, Darius Bathforth, Peter Valusiak, Adam Barnes, and 2 from Andy McKinney. Graham Laverick pulling out a 43 save performance in this one for the Barons. And the Cup winners from last week, well, it was a very different turn of events, a very empty and very cold Ellen Road rink from what we understand, and a bit of a tough start as well for the Stars. A goal down inside 32 seconds and 2-2 heading towards the end of the first period before James Helens got the Stars 3-2 in front, and the Stars did not look back and smashed their way through the Leeds Knights. And another 9-2 scoreline in North 1. Billingham shooting Leeds by 63 to 16. Goals for the Knights coming from Jake Wigington and, unsurprisingly, Owen Dell. The goals for the Stars, 2 for Ian Brown, 2 for Roland's Grittans, and then goals from Callum Wilkinson, Michael Elder, Chris Sykes, James Moss, and as we mentioned, James Helens. Jacob Hammond only facing 16 shots and conceding 2 goals. Not the best of starts, but certainly recovered pretty well going forward. And then D-side, well, their defensive struggles have been something of note that we've talked about quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. But they get an overtime win and only concede 4, which is pretty impressive given how things have been relatively recently. It's been free and easy in both directions with the goals when it comes to D-side, but they managed to hold court at home and get the 2 points for the overtime victory in this one over Hull, as both teams sort of battle for form heading towards the playoffs. Goals for the Dragons from James Parsons, Alex Parry, Will Harper, Jakob Hayek and Brody Jessen. Hull Jets goals, 2 from Kieran Beach and goals from Ian Kerman and Ethan Daintith. And then it was the big one on Sunday, the Battle of the North East, the local derby. And what a game. Well, considering the fact that Whitley were also meant to be playing Solihull at the same time, that game's been cancelled, and by the looks of it, it is not going to be redone. Whitley were at home to Billingham in a game that was ended up being slightly marred by controversy, which we'll talk about momentarily, but it's one that the Stars get the 3-point regulation win. They were 2-0 down inside 12 minutes. Callum Queenan and Harry Harley putting the Warriors in front to keep the home fans happy. But goals either side of the buzzer from Rollins Grittans and Ian Brown made it 2-2 early in the second, and then Brown's 60th goal of the league campaign at 26:45 put Billingham in front. Jamie Orr tied things up just less than a couple of minutes later, but a third period power play goal from Tommy Spraggan, only his 6th goal of the season. And then you can see the assist there, a 52nd assist of the season for Michael Elder and a 59th assist for Chris Sykes, making it 4-3 and a huge win for the Stars as they look to march towards the North 1 title. A little bit of controversy, unfortunately. Mark Turnbull's stick at the end of the second period taken from outside the Billingham Stars dressing room and locked away in a Warriors dressing room. That has to be recovered by Phil Edgar eventually, from what I understand, retrieving the stick for him as the Stars refused to go back onto the ice until the situation was rectified. Firstly, fair play. Secondly, stealing kit is just not, like, get your mental advantage in a different way, not by being a wally, I think is probably the thing I would say on that front. Elsewhere on Sunday, well, a tough weekend all in all for the Leeds Knights, walloped at home by Billingham on the Saturday, and then, having led going into the final couple of minutes, losing in overtime to the Widnes Wild, just a second overtime win of the season for the Wild, who are still chasing the Knights for that playoff spot. But it still looks like it might be a hill slightly too big to climb, but one that they at least are having a good go at. And like we say, a win is a win is a win, and one that will keep the Wild fans very happy after what's been quite a trying year. Goals for Widnes in this one from Luke Alston, Michael Gilbert, Andrew Hopkins, Bez Hughes and Matt Barlow. The Knights' goals coming from Michael Danico, Jake Wigginton, Owen Dell and Fritz Heinzler. And then it wasn't to be for the Lions, only 3 points on the weekend, another 6-point weekend for the Blackburn Hawks, as they win by 6-4 on the small pad at the NIC. The Hawks actually 2-0 up on this one in the first period at 1 point, thanks to 2 goals from Jacob Lutwich. Alish Padalek then pinning them back. Lutwich completing his hat-trick in just 40 seconds into the second period. Ethan Smith pulled it back to 3-2. Liam Charnock and James Royce and another goal from Jacob Lutwich pushed the Hawks out of sight. Jack Croston and Luke Birchnell taking some of the gloss off and making it tight going into the end stages. But the Hawks, who need to keep winning to keep pace on Billingham, managed to do so on that evening there. This upcoming weekend, then, the 8th and 9th of March in North 1. 3 games on Saturday. A fantastically weird 2:50 p.m. face-off on Saturday for the Sheffield Scimitars. They take on the D-side Dragons. Hull host Blackburn at 5:30 p.m. at the world's most versatile arena, and 7 p.m. over on Merseyside for Widnes versus Nottingham. On Sunday, it's back to North Wales for D-side. They take on the Leeds Knights. Also 5 p.m. at Hillheads for the Whitley Warriors and the Nottingham Lions. 5:10 in Ice Sheffield, a double home weekend for the Scimitars. They host the Blackburn Hawks. And then the big game of the weekend in North 1, 5:30 p.m. at Hobbsmoat Road, the Solihull Barons and the Billingham Stars. If we take a look at the league table, the maths for the Stars is now very simple. 4 points from their remaining games will secure the Billingham Stars the North 1 League Championship again. That, of course, is dependent on Blackburn not losing a loss at any point this weekend, along with a Billingham win would already secure the Stars the title. As things stand, they could potentially be winning the title in D-side when I'm there. We will see what happens with that one. As we can see, the Nottingham Lions are now locked into the playoffs. Only 1 spot remains. As we can see, the Leeds Knights 5 points clear of the Wild, having played the same number of games. It's not an insurmountable mountain for the Widnes Wild. It's actually technically still not insurmountable for Sheffield, but it is looking very hard for them to do. Remove the short-handed goals, we beat the Hawks. Defend better on your power play is the answer to that one. Whitley can blame the bench, but if the netminder is Swiss G, yeah. I mean, you can make the jokes on that front. No, not that one. That one. So I can see what I'm doing. Into South 1 then, and it was a pretty standard affair for the Chelmsford Chieftains. The Cardiff Fire made the long trip across from South Wales but ultimately were outclassed. 6-0 down after just past the 27-minute mark. Bailey Hind-Pitcher did ruin the shutout, but it was a pretty comprehensive victory from a Chelmsford perspective. A hat-trick on the night from Cam Bartlett, 2 goals from Ollie Baldock and Sasha Maltsev, as well as goals for Cole McCluskey, Grant Bartlett and Alan Lack. Bailey Hind-Pitcher with Cardiff's lone goal. Tom Adams getting the apologies, it wasn't Jordan Lawley. Tom Adams getting the full 60 minutes in net for the Chieftains, makes 24 saves on 25. Both Ben Scanlon and Brocken Evans get into the net as Chelmsford put 63 shots on the Cardiff net. Invicta looking to try and get some form heading into the playoffs. Well, they managed to shut out the Romford Buccaneers by 4-0 in that something of a local derby. Cam Pybel, Ruskin Springer Hughes, Louis White, and a 37th goal of the campaign for Tom Saw, making it a comfortable night for Invicta. Pretty high shot count as well, 48-38 all in all, as in a bit of a tough night for our friend of the show, and of course the creator of all of our fixture graphics, Max Van Mullen, but still 44 saves on the night is nothing really to be sniffed at. A 38-shot shutout the other end for Brad Windebank. And then the main event in South One on Saturday evening, arguably the biggest game of the weekend across the entire NIHL. Slough and Streatham, the two big boys of South One, going head to head, and you can see from the scoreline, Streatham do it again. And unfortunately, in a big game where they needed to drag something out, they lost at home to Solent and were out in the cup semi-final. Slough needed the win here, and they've beaten Streatham on Streatham's ice this season, but when they really needed to win at home, couldn't win at home. Unfortunately, they couldn't win at home again. Ryan Watt, Danny Ingoldsby, Luke Brittle and Aidan Doughty with the goals for the Red Hawks. Lewis English and Connor Redmond on the board for the Jets in this one. Like I say, if you want a full in-depth look at this game, please do check out the write-up on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. The one thing I will say about this game, is one thing that I really did enjoy, because I didn't put it in the write-up and I should have done, was firstly, Neil Lydiard is a genetic freak, and I don't understand how he keeps playing the way he does at his age. But the fact that, having seen him do what he did in Basingstoke for Tom Banner, to see Lydiard alongside Jude Affleck, one, is hilarious because he's old enough to be Jude's dad, and secondly, like, for any criticisms you can have of any of the coaching aspects of it, that's just smart, sensible coaching. Your youngest, most inexperienced D-man, and you want him to learn. You've got no better teacher at that level, potentially, than you'll get from Neil Lydiard, who still is blocking shots at 46, 47 years old. But what a way for, Neil Lydiard is not going to be a 30, 40-point goal scorer or point scorer at his age from the back end. But he's teaching the kids how to defend, that sort of some of those old school mentality bits that they still need even in this day and age. Massively fun thing to see him alongside Jude Affleck, a kid who I watched be a mascot for the Bison when he was, in still single digits of age. But a crazy game, but ultimately advantage Streatham going forward. A tough weekend for Romford though, 0 points. They lose at home by 4-1 against the Solent Devils on Sunday. They were a goal up early in the second period through Louis Allen, but then Kane Russell, Harry Harcup, Alex Murray and Liam Coleman all managed to put this one to bed. Sonny Phillips getting the net for the Buccaneers in this one. 4 goals and 24 shots for him. Aaron Taylor back between the pipes for the Devils, making a 36 save effort for his troubles. And then in the bigger local derby for Invicta, it's another 6-point weekend for the Chelmsford Chieftains, who are trying to keep themselves in good form as they look to make a defence of their playoff title. 5-2 Chelmsford win in this one, and Chelmsford were 4-0 up inside the 23rd minute. Sam Russell, Cam Bartlett, Grant Bartlett and Mikey Power getting the first 4 for Chelmsford. Ollie Bronneman pulling one back for the Dynamos. Matt Lawday's goal early in the third made it 5-1, and Mads Toon taking some gloss off that win. But ultimately a 6-point weekend for Lewis Clifford's side. No game sheet from Oxford versus Slough, because they didn't send it in, which is something that we will mildly point and laugh at. What we will do very quickly though, because I'm struggling to remember the exact scoreline as we talk about it, but the final score, he says, skipping backwards, Final score was Oxford 0, Slough 9. Slough out shooting Oxford by 63 shots to 11. Goals in this one: 2 from Christian Moore, 2 from Seb Moore, and then goals from Yuhal Lindgren, Ed Cave Humphrey, who got man of the match, Lewis English, Adam Rosam, and Ollie Hemmings Marr. So what we do that one? Yeah, thank you, John. But you got there in the end, didn't I? But yes, teams, send your game sheets in. Don't be lazy. On Sunday, well, Streatham, having had such a big win on Saturday, you'd have forgiven them for having a little bit of a hangover. And they did start pretty well. A scoreless first period gave way to Streatham being 2-0 up inside a minute through Ziggy Beasley and JJ Pitchley. And then Swindon decided that they were not going to play nice. Jay Warren, Ben Nethersell and Tom Ashmore making it 3-2 Swindon at the second break. And then the champs are the champs for a reason. JJ Pitchley's second of the night and 2 from Danny Ingoldsby. The last one being into the empty net means Streatham get a 6-point weekend, having beaten Slough on Saturday. This weekend then, 3 games on Saturday the 8th of March, 5 p.m, of course, as always, down on the south coast for the Solent Devils and the Oxford City Stars. 6:30 at the Hangar for Slough versus Invicta, and Chelmsford, having welcomed Cardiff last weekend, will make the long trip themselves down to the Vindico. That's a 7 p.m. face-off down in South Wales against the Cardiff Fire. On Sunday, a tough one for Streatham. They have to travel down to Invicta. That's a 5:45 p.m. face-off down in Kent. 6 p.m. at the Riverside for Chelmsford and Romford. 6:30 p.m. at the Link for the local derby of sorts, Swindon versus Cardiff in the battle over the bridge. And 6:45 p.m. can MK get a second win of the campaign as they welcome the Solent Devils. If we look at the league table, as we can see now, 32 games played for Streatham and for Slough. It is one of those two who will win the league title. Streatham's win puts them above Slough, 85 points to 83, and then the 12-point gap down to the Chelmsford Chieftains in third place. They will be third. Solent in fourth on 60, followed by Invicta, Romford and Swindon. Those top 7 all locked into the playoffs. Only that one spot left to play for them. The Milton Keynes Thunder, as we can all probably guess, officially eliminated from playoff contention. It will be between the Cardiff Fire and the Oxford City Stars. The Oxford City Stars do hold the tiebreak over the Cardiff Fire, but have played a game more. The Fire have 1 game in hand and lead by a point. Into North 2 then, and the Deeside Ducks, after their slightly comical 1-0 win last time out against the Coventry Blaze, couldn't do the same thing again. They lose by 3-1 at home to the Billingham Buccaneers this past Saturday. Billingham a goal up at the end of the first period through Josh Nertney. Deeside pulling themselves back level early in the second thanks to Dalton Thompson, but goals from Sam Dowd and a goal in the third from Stephen Wallace doing the damage and getting the Buccaneers 3 points to head back to the North East. Pretty impressive goaltending performances on both sides. Jace Gledhill with 32 saves, Ronald Pearce with 39. After their cup victory, well, this was the game that they lost last season. The Tigers' lone league defeat last season was in the Skydome against the Coventry Blaze, but this time the Tigers managed to hold their nerve. Probably helps when you do have Vladimir Luka, who has 19 goals in single-digit games in the league. But it was 1-0 Coventry at the end of the first. Connor Mellett with the opening goal before 2 goals from Vladimir Luka in the second made it 2-1 to Telford. Dan Mitchell made it 3 before Dan Kent's goal made it 3-2. Taylor Stanton with what turned out to be the game winner with just over 8 minutes to play. Connor Mellett's second of the night did make it interesting, but ultimately another 3 points in the bag for the Tigers. And then on Sunday, the big one. The big one that has potentially handed the title back to the Telford Tigers, because the Sutton Sting lose in regulation in Billingham. The Buccaneers beat the Sting again, having beaten them last year in the playoff final, have now potentially put a huge spanner in the works of their title chances. Billingham were a goal down inside 2 minutes and then were 4-1 up by the end of the 34th minute. Cameron Akers with the goal for Sutton before a natural hat-trick from Tom Fraser and a goal from Josh Nertney made it 4-1. Morgan Glasby then pulled it back by himself to 4-3 by the end of the second period. But a goal from Jonathan Galloway early in the third proved out to be the game winner. Elliot Meadows made it close right at the end But no doing for Sutton. They lose a second game of the season, and it is very much advantage Telford, especially when the Tigers get a shutout win at home against the Kingston Sharks. They outshoot their visitors by 48 to 22, and Vladimir Luka didn't even score in this one. Paul Davies, along with 2 goals in the third from Lewis Smith, meaning that Telford are firmly in command when it comes to the North 2 title. We'll look at the table momentarily, of course. Sheffield get themselves a good away win. It's been a bit of just their 5th win of the campaign for the Titans, but they beat the Altrincham Aces by 4 goals to 3 in Manchester. Harry Roebuck, Lewis Swaffield, Joe Matthewman and Millie Thurlborn with the goals for the Titans. The goals for the Aces coming from Ollie Gotts, Carl Price and Josh Milnes. This upcoming weekend then, the 8th and 9th, 3 games on the Saturday. The Deeside Ducks back at home on Saturday at 5 p.m. over in Queens Ferry. They take on the Telford Tigers too. Could they prove to be put some even more chaos into this North 2 title race? 5:30 p.m. at the Forum for the Bellingham Buccaneers and the Sheffield Titans, and the Kingston Sharks welcome the Coventry NHL Blaze at the world's most versatile arena. That too is 5:30 on Saturday. 5:30 p.m. on Sunday then for the Bradford Bulldogs. They will take on the Bellingham Buccaneers, and 6:15 p.m. at the Sky Dome for the Coventry NHL Blaze and the Nottingham Lions NHL 2. If we look at the table then, it is now Telford's to lose. The Sting still have a game in hand, but will be 3 points back thanks to that defeat to Billingham. The top 6 locked into the playoffs. So Telford, Sutton, Billingham, Coventry, Altrincham and Kingston. The Sheffield Titans and the Bradford Bulldogs are on the inside looking out. The Titans as well have a game in hand, which will obviously come this weekend against the Nottingham Lions 2. Over certainly when it comes to keeping them at bay from Bradford. Deeside and Deeside might have had a little bit too little too late there. It's going to be a tough one for them, but they are still not mathematically out of this one. Thankfully, Invicta should avoid Chelmsford. Hell, thank God they've had a number all year. I can imagine that. Imagine that, John. And then into South 2 to finish up as we traditionally do, and it was a bit tough going originally for the Guildford Phoenix down on the south coast. Challenged quite heavily by the Solent Junior Devils to start things, and 2-2 very early on in the second period before eventually the Phoenix decided to do what they always do and turn up late and give everybody a bit of a kicking. 9-3 in the end for Stuart Potts' team, and a Solent Devils side that was bolstered by a number of players from the Solent Devils first team, but ultimately not enough to be able to put the Guildford Phoenix to the sword and ruin their potential march to the South 2 title. A hat-trick for Scott Bailey, as well as goals for Monty Gaylor, Teo Sire, Sol Studley, Jared Vigar, Josh Abbott and Ollie Dennis. The goals for the Solent Junior Devils coming from 2 from Leo Harris and 1 from Charlie Wedge. And then, well, in the league, my understanding was that this was a Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup game. It's listed as a league game. No, apologies. That was Lee Valley. I'm getting them confused. I did think this was an Eddie Joseph game, but it is a league fixture, and one that the Haringey Huskies win by 3 goals to 1 over the Chelmsford Warriors. All the goals coming before the end of the second period. Stephen Woodford putting Haringey ahead before 2 goals from Martin Shaz made it 3-0. Benji Powell getting the Warriors on the board before the Haringey Huskies managed that game out. Naomi Healy in the net for the Huskies, only facing 15 shots. Luke Conley at the other end faces 76. The Cardiff Canucks, again, send in your game sheets, you silly sausages, but they do win by 4 goals to 0 against the Chelmsford Warriors. What we'll do very quickly, though, is we will see if we can quickly pull anything from their social media on this one, because I am pretty... that is their... The Cardiff Canucks have managed to put nothing on their Twitter about them winning, which is always an interesting suggestion. So there we go. So it is a 4-0 win, the first ever shutout in Cardiff Canucks history, and Mackenzie McNamara is the one who gets the honour. So congratulations to Mackenzie on that one. No word on the goal scorers there, because if you don't send in your game sheet, you don't get to play, is the short version on that. Fixtures then for this upcoming weekend, only 4 games across the entirety of NIHL NHL 2 South. 5:45 on Saturday for the Chelmsford Warriors and the Cardiff Canucks. Can the Warriors avenge that 4-0 shutout loss away in South Wales? 7 p.m. on Saturday down in Kent for the Invicta Mustangs and the Haringey Huskies. On Sunday at Cribbs Causeway, it's the Bristol Pitbulls and the Solent Junior Devils. And then 5:30 p.m. over in Lee Valley, a big game for the Phoenix because they have 3 games left, win all 3, and they are league champions again. But the Phoenix have to first overcome the Lee Valley Lions. If we look at the table, of course, we know that Peterborough have the cup, but they having finished all of their league games, they are 7 points ahead of Guildford, and Guildford with 3 league games to play, 2 against Lee Valley and 1 against Solent. In terms of the playoffs, the top 5 are locked in. Peterborough, Guildford, Haringey, Invicta, and Oxford are in. Either way, it's then mathematically Lee Valley still aren't out of it, but you'd imagine it would take something quite astronomical for them to be so. Solent, Cardiff, and Chelmsford are on the inside looking out, but it's starting to get close to that 8th spot. You think now, looking at the numbers, that Solent and Cardiff will make their way in. Chelmsford and Bristol are both on 11 points from 15 games. Bristol have won more in regulation than Chelmsford. But Chelmsford have managed to win 4 games to Bristol's 3. It's going to be a very close end of the season there, especially when you think that that you've got Bristol against Solent, a game that is winnable for them. Chelmsford need a result really against Cardiff to make that one stick. So there we go. Every game across all 5 leagues of the National Ice Hockey League structure is done. We've gone from Leeds to Lee Valley and left nobody out. That means we open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything and everything from anywhere and anywhere hockey-wise. Let's have a little chat. We're at 9:15, so we have some time to have a wander through and a chat about anything else anybody has going on. What we'll do now then is see if we can get this to work now. We'll see if it works. We'll see if we can get it to work. There we go. Is this going to work now? I don't have like 60 things on my screen at the same time. We'll see if it does function. Andrew, there we are. You're wondering where you are. The Women's World Championship Division 1 Group B in Dumfries, April 9th to 15th. Tickets on sale and team announced. Yes, indeed, we do have the GB women's team. What we'll do... Can I scroll this down a bit? Can I click on that like that? If I click that... No, that's not going to work either. So they've put that image in there. So what we can at least do, actually, let's try doing it like that. If I do that, so there we go. There we can see they've cut off Stuart Mogg's head, but we can see here what that Bees retro jersey is going to look like, and I think that looks pretty tasty, all things considered. So what do we think of that? Proper old school, early 2000s Bees jersey, all things considered. Meanwhile, Andrew, I'll click the buttons. Let's go back then, because in the chat, Andrew is chucking in his usual bits and pieces from the WNIHL, which is fantastic. So we can start in the Elite League with the WNIHL Elite League from Saturday. The Queen Bees squeaking out a win away in Hull. 4-3 they win against the Kingston Diamonds. Whitley Bay Beacons 3, Guildford Lightning 1. And Solihull continue their march towards the WNIHL title with a 3-1 win on the high road against the Streatham Storm. One game from Sunday in the Elite League, and that was Guildford's 4-1 win over Streatham. North 1 on Sunday. Kingston Diamonds Division 1 roster beat the Nottingham Vipers by 4-1. And in Div 1 South on Sunday, the Bristol Huskies get bragging rights in their local derby. They beat the Swindon Top Cats by 3-2. Chelmsford make the long trip over to Cardiff and beat the Cardiff Comets by 4-2. The Firebees win by 5-1 in Milton Keynes. 2 North on Sunday, Whitley Bay Beacons 2, Sheffield Shadows 6. In South 2 on Saturday, a 7-1 win for Streatham Storms Division 2 roster away at Peterborough Phantoms. They win by 7-1, as I say. And Cambridge Kodiaks sneak out of the South Coast with a 2-1 win over the Solent Amazons. Goals from Ellie Goldstone and Christina Ashley for the Kodiaks. Solent's goal scored by Lucy Gates, thanks to Dave P, who I know was there with the Kodiaks on that occasion. Elite League fixtures then upcoming for this Saturday: Whitley Bay versus Kingston, Solihull versus Queen Bees, a huge one. You think if Solihull win that one, it's two hands firmly on the league title trophy for them. Sunday on the high road, Streatham try to get some revenge on the Guildford Lightning. What's Jamie said there? We should have a retro weekend in the National League like the Elite League. I don't necessarily disagree with that, and I think fair play to the Bees. To the Bees' credit, some of their jersey ideas have been, some ideas they've had have been quite ahead of the curve. Just the roster planning didn't really seem to go too well for them this year. But getting the trading cards, which were really good, we talked about how good those were. Some of their jersey design stuff has been really good as well. Somebody who doesn't like like Halloween, and the Halloween jerseys have been really good. I think this retro jersey, like I say, it looks interesting for sure. But where we've got the only issue, of course, is Leeds, because of course there isn't that massive sort of history. But what I've seen a few newer baseball clubs do is, instead of a retro night or a throwback night, they do a faux back night. So kind of get some old style designs done for it, but just kind of nodding to the fact that, yeah, we are a new club. We don't have the same history. Because if you're Leeds, you've been around since like just about pre-pandemic. You don't have the history of Milton Keynes hockey history, Hull's hockey history, Romford's hockey history, Swindon. The Bees are a very old club as well, in spite of their move from Bracknell to Slough. So for me, you can get around that. Leeds, you either do yourself as the Chiefs, and I don't know why you would, because for me, I think there's much more they can kind of do with kind of, like I say, doing a faux back and kind of taking the Knights idea and doing some sort of different designs, for example. I think there's some work that could be done there that could do that. I think it'd be really cool. For Romford, there'd be some really good old school Romford designs that they could use. Bristol, you go back to the Arrows or the Bulldogs. Plenty of stuff that you can do with that. It'd be really cool. We click buttons. What have we got? Fife have scored. So it's only 5-1. Kieran Craig on the board there for them. 2-2 between Nottingham and Glasgow. Dundee leading by 3-1 as they look to push themselves away from the Storm for that last play-off spot. If we do Liam Kirk watch, let's just quickly get that one, because the Eisbären Berlin played yesterday. I know they won 6-3 away at Schwenningen yesterday. So in terms of things right now for the Eisbären Berlin, they are pretty firmly ensconced in second place in the DEL table. They have qualified for the playoffs as a result. Ingolstadt are top with 113 points from 51 games played. The Eisbären on 105. They are 11 points clear of Bremerhaven, who are in third. So Liam Kirk is going to be playing DEL playoff hockey. As it stands, because the DEL have a pre-playoff section, so what they do, 7th place 10th, 8th place 9th, and then the lowest seed sort of remaining plays the team in first, the second place the team in second. So effectively Berlin are going to be playing one of Straubing, Nuremberg, Schwenningen or Wolfsburg, although that's not 100% set in stone, because Frankfurt are still pretty close, so that could theoretically change for them. But yeah, so Kirk himself has obviously had a really good year. He currently stands, if we quickly pull up their, if we try quickly to pull up their roster, because he's not in their, he was not immediately in their bits and pieces. What we want is statistics. If we just quickly load up those, what we need is, where's he gone? So He is. So Kirk is third in team scoring currently. So in terms of the Ice Band, the team's top scorer is Ty Ronning, who's an American. 37 goals, 34 points, 71. So it's 37 goals, 34 assists, 71 points. Leo Ferdl, German international, has 25 goals, 44 assists for 69 points. And then Kirk is in third on team scoring because, of course, he missed a tiny bit of the season through injury. 47 games played, 23 plus 20 for 43 points for Kirk on the year. A plus-minus rating of plus 11 on the season. So definitely not the highest, in that one. When it comes to it, he is third on the team for goals, and a bit further down for assists. There's quite a lot of guys with quite a lot of assists on that Berlin team, but certainly no slouch this year, Liam Kirk. And of course, that is the first of a 2-year deal with the Eisbären Berlin. Lightning, it's either the Kings 94-96 blue home jersey or the first Lightning jersey with the broken puck logo and the Lightning Bolt from 02-03. MK, given its history, has got a lot of different options it could reach to should it want to on that front. But yeah, anything else anybody wants to chuck in? NHL, Ovi's getting closer. I feel like we broke that. Where is he now? 11 off at the moment. The Caps are still doing very well, which is alarming. Some big trades as well, which has been pretty weird to see as well. The deadline edging ever closer. Oh, I need some water. But yeah, we won't do much longer because it's 9:25 now. So we have obviously chatted a few bits. Thank you to Andrew as well for chucking the WNHL bits and pieces into the chat. So yeah, this weekend, Romford for the first time. For my first time at the Sapphire. Like I say, looking forward to it. I'm not massively looking forward to the drive because it looks like it's going to be a bit of a pig to do, but just because it's long and dull. Because if you don't know, like I say, I'm for those of you who don't know, I'm Southampton based, so I literally just have motorway followed by long motorway, and I have to go around the M25. So this is just going to be incredibly dull. But really looking forward to it. Really thankful to folk at Romford for sorting me out so I can get in and watch the game. Just going to be interesting. Andrew, can I come and hang out and watch watch all the fun bits with you? That'd be quite fun. Do we, Washington, need winning the President's Trophy, Anthony, given our history when winning it? I don't think we do. But ultimately, I don't believe in luck, so curses don't exist. In that sense, I think for the Caps have done really well this year, just playing off of vibes. As long as the vibes stay good, I think it's fine. I think the bigger issue for the Caps for me is where is some of the teams I think are better set up to play playoff hockey than the Caps are. I think the Caps just play, like I say, what happens to the Caps' vibes if they lose, if they have a bad game on that front. I think that's where the bigger thing for the Caps will be. But ultimately, I think the Caps are much better set up than I anticipated them being this year. It seems to have worked, and I don't know why. Shout out to Spencer Carberry. He's coached this team fantastically this year. I'll see you there. Yeah, I mean, Romford fans, if you see me floating around, do come say hello, because I will be sort of shooting off quite quickly after the game's finished because of the time it'll take me to get home. But I'm genuinely really looking forward to it. One of the big things of the last couple of years, just because of, like I say, of how I choose to do bits and pieces with my life because of my wife and my son and all my hockey bits and pieces, means that doing lots of away days wasn't something I did, but now every day is effectively an away day. But it has allowed me the opportunity to go to some really cool places, meet some really different people, and like I said, the folk at Romford have been really good to me. You know, when I lost an outlet to do my writing, Paul Windebank, who edits the Romford programme, said, write about whatever you want. And just write about whatever you want every week. And I've been given complete carte blanche to do anything. And I don't get much feedback from fans in Romford, although I know obviously Paul will give me sort of feedback about what I've said. And Paul has in the past been, thanks to Paul, I've been able to do the programs for Olympic qualifiers and World Championships and playoff weekends and stuff like that. And as somebody who writes, to know that my writing is able to be seen in that sense is a really 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 big and really cool thing, and it's allowed me to be in things seen by people around the world. Like I say, World Championship, I've been in a World Championship program, I've been in an Olympic qualifier program. The next one will be the Olympics, on that front. Safe trips to the Sapphire. See you Sunday. I will do indeed, Andrew. Yes, I'll see if I can wrangle coming and standing where you do for warm ups, because I think that'd be really interesting to watch up close. But no dramas if we can't make that work. But really looking forward to it, mate. It's going to be so many times. I've seen Andrew obviously along the way, and of course when Basingstoke were around, he was there every time there was a relevant game. So to be able to kind of go into what has become his turf, as it were, is certainly going to be really interesting. I will not be turning up with the roster sheets and little bits of paper though, Andrew, as you know that is not my style. But yeah, massively looking forward to it. Last call. Questions, comments, thoughts and feelings. Anything else anybody wants to kind of chuck in will be really appreciated. Just very quickly check any other news that's going through, as it were. Yeah, the other bits going on for me. So the end of the season is going to be a bit of an interesting one, just because there is a lot of commentary bits and pieces. And I've been asked back to Guildford to end the 24-25 campaign. So the playoffs from an NHL perspective are going to be a bit different from my end, because I'm going to have to kind of catch up on lots of stuff, because I will be doing... for the Guildford Flames, I've got the last 2 games of Guildford's regular season, and I will be commentating on Guildford's home playoff tie on the weekend of the 12th and 13th of April, whether it's the Saturday or the Sunday. So I'm a weird one. The most Elite League hockey I've watched for quite some time this season. I think it works out by the end of the year. I think I'll have done 11 National League games, 10 Elite League, and then it'll be Division 1, bits of Division 1 and bits of Division 2. Into the bargain as well. By the end of March, I'll have seen my first league game in North 1, because I'll have actually made up North. So the only division of senior men's hockey I won't have watched in Britain will be North 2. I don't know how I quickly work out how to get that one done. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. But yeah, as ever, you guys kind of supporting me and backing me to kind of do some of the fun things that I get to do is massively appreciated. So I'm really thankful that, for the opportunity again. Thankful to the Flames. And yeah, I will also be on the call with Joe Scutts for the Bees' last home game of their season, which is Saturday 22nd of March against the Sheffield Steel Dogs. So I get a few weeks of commentary back to back to kind of before the commentary weekend, which will be really fun. Looking forward to what's to come on that front. As for what I'm doing when it comes to Coventry, to be revealed. So we'll work it out from there. Right, we will call it there, I think, as it's hit 9:30, and we will end as we usually do. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Catch up with my journey through British hockey in our Banners on the Road series, where we go in depth into the last game I've watched. Last weekend, Slough versus Streatham, and next week you will get an in-depth look at the Romford Raiders and the MK Lightning. As well as that, there's our Hockey Story series, long form, in-depth pieces of content. Like I say, got 2 pieces on the go, but it has been a bit of a struggle to kind of get them done with all the other stuff that's going on. But they are, like I say, they are works in progress. And one of them is a historical piece that I really want to write, but there's a chunk of research I still kind of need to do. And it's like, I don't want to start writing it fully until I've got some of these extra bits. So they might come out after the end of the season, but they will come out, if you see what I mean. So just bear with me on those as the sort of end of the season kind of takes hold. But either way, there's that, the old BOTW podcast to check out, and our free to download tabletop game Dice Hockey. I talk about Parkinson's UK, like I say, keep that pound coin somewhere. You're going to need it, because next week our raffle for Steel City Showdown tickets will begin. Do you want 6 finals for £1? You will find a way, and we will figure out how we can do that for you come next week. But either way, nearly, because we're getting there, 14 years worth of stuff at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. Twitter is at bannersotw. Blue Sky is bannersonthewall.bsky.social. And of course, there's our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. We're never going behind the paywall, but the it costs money to kind of do bits and pieces of that. And if you like what you get, if you think it's worth it, please do chuck a couple of quid in our virtual busking hat. If you can't afford it, please don't think that you need to give money. But if you could share something out, share it on, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Blue Sky or wherever, Instagram, TikTok. If you like stuff, share it out because it just helps get more eyes on stuff. But of course, if you need a link, head down there into the description because that's where you can find the link to all of our socials. And that's the joy of YouTube whilst you're down there. Hit the subscribe button, share the video, like the video, do all of that good stuff. Keep that algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed. Because here on the BOTW YouTube channel, of course, we've got plenty of videos, interviews, game reviews, all kinds of crazy bits and pieces that you might want to check out and watch over time, as well as every previous BOTW What's Current stream. We are here Wednesday night, 8 PM. The only live show that covers every game across the entirety of the NIHL is right here. You get the chat, you can catch up if you want to and use the secret word in the comments. Either way, Wednesday night, 8 PM, the BOTW What's Current stream. The only show of its kind across all of British hockey. And we thank you for joining us once again on a Wednesday night. A new adventure for me this weekend. Looking forward to it, as it is all coming down to the wire. It's going to be a really, really exciting last couple of weeks as Coventry and Sheffield edge ever, ever closer. I look forward to sharing it all with you because next week we'll chat through all of it all over again. Be happy. And if you can't be happy with them wherever you are, please, whatever you do, please do your very best to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Was would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time, Romford fans, I will see you on Sunday. I've heard so much and I've written quite a lot for you. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's all like with my own two eyes. There's no better way to experience hockey. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy yourself wherever you find it before the season ends. And I will see you back here next Wednesday night for the BOTW What's